Finn Voices on the Healthcare Now radio, where we highlight and amplify the voices at the forefront of health innovation that improves people's lives. Join us for an inside look at the changemakers driving conversation and answering the most important questions in healthcare today. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Beth Friedman, Senior Partner at Finn Partners. I'm based in Atlanta, and my guest today is Dan McDonald. He is the CEO of 86Borders. So, Dan, you and I have worked together over the past year, and along the way, we've been discussing the challenges faced by health plans. So here's kind of what I've learned from you so far. Tell me if I'm right. Build better member relationships, earn the member trust, and at the end of the day, improve their star ratings. I know 86Borders has really helped with several health plans achieve these goals, especially in the underserved and vulnerable populations, which I know I want to chat with you about today. So did I get it right, Dan? Are those the three priorities?
Hi, Beth. Yes, you got it exactly right. Thank you.
So thanks for joining the show today.
I'm honored to be here, quite frankly.
Super. Let's get started. So just this past week, I saw a study by Health Edge that really said that health plan members aren't as satisfied as we'd like them to be. The survey was 2,800 members, so it's quite a big number. And I think less than half were satisfied with their health plan. So what's going on here? What happens when the members aren't happy? What's that business impact to the health plan?
It's an interesting question. So in the world today, health plans are measured based on a star rating system. And customer satisfaction, customer experience, member satisfaction, member experience are significant components of that. And historically, what's happened is that health plans have worked with vendors and hired a vendor for a particular measure to try to improve that measure so they can improve their overall star ratings. But they have built relationships with multiple vendors. Those multiple vendors then reach out to members, and at any one time, a member may receive outreaches, phone calls, texts from multiple vendors on behalf of a health plan. And it's not a connected system. So the member doesn't get a sense that the health plan is taking a member first approach. It can cause abrasion, and abrasion leads to a less than pleasing customer experience.
You know, it's funny you mention all that, because I think I'm the recipient of numerous outreaches and calls on behalf of my health plan, and to the point, you're right. I mean, I just don't answer the phone anymore, right? So it's not conducive to building that member relationship that we're really looking for, and it sounds like the health plans need. So member satisfaction, increasing satisfaction, and reducing abrasion sounds like the goals. What are some of the issues around that you're seeing at 86Borders? As far as, what are some of the obstacles, I guess, to either building better member relationship or reducing abrasion?
So oftentimes, a health plan will take the approach of reaching out and letting a member know that there's a specific gap they need to close. They want the member to come in for a breast cancer screening or a colorectal screening, or to get a flu shot, or to get a retinal eye exam. But they're not really reaching out to that member to find out how that member's doing. And so perhaps a more member-first, member-centric approach would be to conduct an outreach where you genuinely ask and are interested in how your member is doing. And oftentimes in the vulnerable and hard to reach populations, the dual eligible populations, the Medicaid populations, they are confronted with and experience what has become known as the impact of the social determinants of health. Now, I'm a little bit older, so when I grew up, we called them Maslow's hierarchy: food, clothing, shelter. It's the basic pyramid that if you can't satisfy those needs, you really can't consider other things that many others might consider important. So one approach that seems to be working is to engage with a member, ask them how they're doing, uncover any potential social determinant needs, and then work with that member to satisfy those needs by referring that member to an appropriate community-based organization that can mitigate food insecurity or transportation insecurity or housing insecurity or safety insecurity. And by doing that, we extend and build on the beginnings of a trusted relationship. Once that's in place, then we can begin to have a discussion with the member about the metrics the health plan really wants that member to engage in. But it starts by enabling that member to take care of their basic needs so that they can now think about other things that the health plan wants to have them think about.
Okay, so
does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what you're saying is start with the person first, right? The member first. So ask them what's going on in their lives, address those basic needs they have going on, and then you can get into the conversation. Oh, by the way, it's time for your mammogram, or it's time for your flu shot or your colorectal screening, like you mentioned. So it sounds to me like a better approach than what's happening now. Like, I think I'm just a victim of robodials, right? From my health plan. So instead of that approach, it's better to think about the person first, the member first, and then address other stuff.
It's also important to recognize the environment in which we're operating. When you're talking about those vulnerable population segments, you're talking about a population that represents probably the least educated segment of the state's population, maybe the most transient segment of the state's population. And when you combine these things, you have to take a more empathetic approach when you connect with and engage with a member. It helps if you can speak their language. Not everyone speaks English as a first language, and you have to be cognizant of that. Second, what we're talking about, sometimes we throw around something like colorectal screening. Not everybody knows what that really is. And so it's being willing and able to take the empathetic approach, be patient, and explain what we're talking about as though we were explaining it to somebody who has perhaps a sixth grade education. So it's a longer process, but it's a process that builds and establishes that trusted relationship. And once that trusted relationship is in place, we're able to, anyone is able to maintain that trusted relationship and then have an ongoing relationship with that member that will benefit that member long-term. And by benefiting the member long-term, it benefits the health plan long-term.
So it's almost a focus on quality over quantity in many ways, where the quality of the relationship is what's most important.
I believe that's well stated. So I'll leave it at that. That was great.
So you're talking a lot about a lot of personalized outreach, and with this member engagement strategy that we're trying to do here. On my show, we talk a lot about data and using data in healthcare. So I assume it all starts with finding these members, right? Another report I saw earlier this year did say that for the health plans, they had like less than half of their Medicaid and D-SNPs, that dual eligible special needs that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. They had less than half of the information, most current information for this population. So let's talk a little bit about data. Where does it come from? How does it fit in the picture?
There's an adage out there that data is king, and truer words were probably never spoken. The challenges that health plans face are enormous because they capture the data from an application that a member has submitted. And again, let's get back to the idea that these members represent the least educated segment of the population. So it may not be completed in the way that you and I might complete a written application. It may not be as legible as we might complete it. I may have Spanish as my first language, and yet I'm trying to complete this form in English. There's several challenges that a health plan faces when they get their initial set of data. What's important is to try to find that member, aggregate sources of data in a way that creates a member profile that gives you a greater likelihood of being able to connect with that member. And so oftentimes it results in acquiring data from providers or data from hospitals or data from ADT feeds, things like that, that may have more current, up-to-date, and accurate data on a member, and then utilizing that member in a way that is productive, empathetic, and enables a trusted relationship to be established.
So it sounds like building these member profiles should be a huge priority for health plans, and I assume it is.
It's a very big priority for the health plans. It is an area that they, I think, endeavor to do better. But I think, honestly, they would tell you that at any given time, anywhere from 30 to 60% of the data they have on their members is inaccurate. Mm. And it creates challenges for them. Some of it also is because of data entry errors. You have people that are entering data and they're putting telephone numbers in the wrong fields. They're putting member IDs in the wrong fields. Those are the types of things that they face. And so it's a challenge, and they're dealing with hundreds of thousands of members. So that challenge is compounded. So one of the things that we endeavor to do, and I'm sure other vendors do as well, is to compile data and to continue to build on and improve the data on the member set that we're charged with engaging, and then provide that data back to the health plan in a way that it enables them to perhaps benefit from that.
Yeah, you mentioned they're huge businesses, right? Our health plans and our payers in the United States, millions of patients. It sounds like they're trying to do better, but there's definitely still some challenges. So thanks for explaining how 86Borders is helping with that.
Well, health plans are what I call behemoths. They're big companies. And when you get to be that big, you try to implement policies and procedures that enable the people that work throughout the organization to have a common pathway. Unfortunately, the health plans deal with all types of strata of members, and the policies and procedures you may build for those members that are in your fully insured or employer-sponsored plans are different than the policies and procedures that may be needed for the Medicaid or the dual eligible special needs populations. But when you get to a certain size, it's hard to have a variety of policies and procedures. Mm. And so I think it's incumbent, or I believe health plans believe it's incumbent on finding quality partners that are able to leverage their skills, their techniques to supplement what a health plan is already trying to do.
Yeah. It would take a whole different mindset, right, to reach out to me for something versus to reach out to somebody who has housing insecurity and food insecurity and, all these other issues that we see in the other populations.
Well, it's again, it's the little things. So, when you look at your phone, when there's an incoming call, if you don't recognize the number, you're probably not going to answer it. If it's an 800 number or toll-free number, you're probably not going to answer it. Well, the people that live in the population segments that we're talking about have many, many more reasons not to answer those calls if they don't know who it is. It could be bill collectors. It could be any number of things that the people that they don't really want to talk to. And so they're very distrustful of the system. And so the ability to build on a trusted relationship and get beyond that level of distrust that is inherent in that population is step one.
You're listening to Finn Voices on Healthcare Now Radio. This is Beth Friedman, and I am with Dan McDonald, CEO of 86Borders. We're talking about innovative ways to increase member engagement and member satisfaction in health plans. So, Dan, I wanted to talk about those populations you just mentioned. Let's dive into that a little bit. These are sort of the unreachable members, right? The hardest to find, hardest to engage with. Are there any sort of, unique, there's obviously unique challenges. You mentioned they may not have a phone, their phone number may change, right? They're transient. Any other sort of unique nuances with this population that 86Borders, because I know you guys focus here, that you've really identified as something that needs to be addressed when you're trying to improve your member satisfaction and your member engagement?
There are so many things, and I often liken it to not one thing that's going to make a difference. You can't do one thing better, and that's going to be the aha moment. What I believe is that it's the aggregation of many, many little things being brought together to enable a better outreach, a more successful outreach, and the beginning and establishment of a trusted relationship. So it's little things, like perhaps buying local telephone numbers, so that when you're calling a member, they're recognizing the area code and the exchange. It may be the exchange of their provider. It's knowing who their provider is, so that when we're able to connect with a member, we're able to reference information that will help them understand that we know them and we're calling for a reason, for a good and valid reason. As again, it's speaking in their language and knowing what that language is. It's reaching out to them in a way that they want to be reached out to, communicate the way they want to communicate, that they want to be communicated with. It's recognizing that this population, particularly the Medicaid population, oftentimes represents the working poor. So reaching out to them during the day by telephone is a challenge because they typically work at jobs where they're not able to take phone calls during the day. So it's working with them. We use SMS messaging very effectively. Most of the time, it's used to be able to get a response back from a member as to when a better time to call them would be, and then being diligent to follow up with them at that time. These are the little things. So when you aggregate all these little things, and there's many, many more little things, but when you aggregate them, we give ourselves a better opportunity to successfully outreach to a member. Once we've gotten them, then we can begin to see how they're doing, find out whether there's any challenges they're being confronted with on a daily or weekly basis, help them with those challenges if in fact there are, and then talk with them and explain their benefits. The other thing that I think it's easy to forget is that these populations are offered a very robust set of benefits. And I kind of liken it to myself. I've got Medicare and a Medicare supplement program, and I consider myself reasonably well educated. I've been in the healthcare industry for a number of years. And I could not begin to tell you the extent of the benefits I have with my Medicare and Medicare supplement program that I have. And yet we expect the members to utilize the D-SNP members, the Medicaid members, to utilize their benefits appropriately. And I would posit that they don't even know what their benefits are. And so a big part of what we do is to educate their members on their benefits, to help them understand how to utilize their benefit. So it's taking them through that. Once they begin to grasp that, then you can talk with them about the specific metrics that you want them to satisfy, and help them understand, depending on the plan and that type of thing, the implications from a financial perspective, because oftentimes they feel they're going to get a bill, and it may or may not be true, but they don't know. And there's a fear out there that exists. So it's overcoming those fears. It's identifying those fears because you've been able to engage with that member, because they're willing to talk with you, it's uncovering those fears and then helping them understand what the real world is, and that the health plans are out there for their benefit.
Not to push them in a corner or to point fingers at them or anything like that. I get that.
Correct.
I get that. And I assume once you get somebody who's been really difficult to reach, an unreachable member, once you get in contact with them, once you have that relationship, probably one of the most important things is to be able to meet that higher level of Maslow's needs pretty quickly, right? You can't tell them, oh, I'll get back to you in a week. You need to kind of have a community resource or a service or some kind of answer right away.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way we've structured it, our care coordinators, first of all, they all have a degree in social work or a master's in public health, and they go through extensive empathy training to be able to handle this type of role. That's again one more small thing that goes to us being able to be more effective in this role. But also what we have found is that, health plans have a system. They're trying to be efficient. So they may say they want to try 3 outreaches before they term someone unreachable. But that means that they will call somebody 3 times over 1 day or over 2 days, and the phone doesn't get answered, but they're calling during working hours, and then that person's marked as unreachable. And yet, with just a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of change to that pattern, you're able to connect with that person. And what we have found is that when we connect successfully with the people that are the most needy and the most interested, we engage with them multiple times over ensuing weeks as we begin to uncover their needs. And I could go into member stories that would, I think, be fascinating to you. But by uncovering their needs, satisfying those needs, right there, a care coordinator can refer a member to an appropriate community-based organization that can satisfy a food insecurity, that perhaps can assist in satisfying a housing insecurity. And when I say something like housing insecurity, it's such a general term. So you have to sit there and have a conversation with the individual. What is your insecurity around housing? Are you unable to make your mortgage payment? Are you unable to make a utility payment? Can you not find housing? Do you need to retrofit your housing because your grandparents are moving in? You need a wheelchair ramp, or you need bars in your bathroom. What is the challenge you're facing, so that we can identify what the appropriate community-based organization is that we can then refer you to. But just as important is to then follow up with that member 7 to 9 days later and make certain that that connection was successful. And the only person that can really tell you whether that connection was successful is, in fact, the member. Okay. And when you do that, now they're saying, oh, they care enough to call me back. And that's the important thing. We do little things like they are able to reach back out to us. And when they reach back out to us, they actually reach back out to the care coordinator that handled them on the first time. Our system knows. And so they're able to go back in, and Tina answers the phone, and Tina was the one that was working with them initially. And again, Tina knows who they are. We build a patient profile, a member profile, and we build that profile. And when that phone rings, that profile pops up on Tina's screen, and Tina's able to recall the prior conversations. The entire history is right there. So it's just an aggregation of little things that drive that trusted relationship.
Yeah, I think when you and I first met over lunch, you told me it's like 1,000 stars of light or points of light coming together, right?
I referred to George Bush the first 1,000 points of light.
Yeah, you did.
What do you do better than so-and-so? I said, we don't do any one thing better than anybody else. We do 1,000 little things, a incy bit different than other people. And it's this aggregation of differences that enables us to be more effective in engaging with the very difficult to reach members. Mm-hmm. Okay. And this is an area that we have focused on. So we're not all things to all people. Okay. We have chosen a segment of the market that most people would define as very, very difficult group with which to engage. But by focusing our efforts on this market, we've been able to garner certain learnings and apply those learnings in a way that continues to help us improve the methods we use and the mechanisms and our metrics.
Okay, so we've only got a few more minutes of our conversation today. So I did have a question. Speaking of uniqueness, I know this story, but I think our listeners will be curious. The number 86 in your name, I think it's really cool how that came to be because it points to the foundation of your company before healthcare. So can you explain to the audience where the name came from?
Absolutely. It's great. Thank you for asking that story. It's confusing to many people. So when I co-founded the company, I owned 9 restaurants. And in the restaurant world, if anyone's ever worked in that world, you may know that the term 86 means to do away with, take it off the menu, eliminate it. And so my partner suggested the term 86Borders. The premise of our company was to determine what could happen when we could extend communication beyond an enterprise border, connecting disparate groups, accelerating a business process, and lead to a more pleasing customer experience. In the world of healthcare, you can just substitute a healthcare business process and a more pleasing member experience. So 86Borders really means that we eliminate enterprise borders. We're able to extend communication, providing visibility and transparency to an entire process, and engage disparate groups. So we engage with a member. We may also have to engage with a community-based organization, with a pharmacy, with a transportation company, with a long-term services and support organization within a health plan. And we engage those components as appropriate, always keeping the member first approach. So the member is at the center of all of the conversations, and it leads to a more pleasing member satisfaction at the end.
Dan, you have down here a closing thought, which I've heard you say a bunch of times. If you can engage a member, nothing else matters. And if you can't engage a member, nothing else matters. So I think that is an excellent way to conclude our show. Thank you so much for being on Fin Voices today and talking about better member engagement. It's exciting to hear all the member first initiatives that you guys are doing there at 86Borders. So congratulations and great work.
Thank you for this time together. I greatly appreciate it. Have a great day.
The easiest way to reach Dan is on LinkedIn, and you can learn more about 86Borders at their website, 86borders.com. This has been Beth Friedman, Senior Partner at Fin Partners. I thank you for listening to Fin Voices on Healthcare Now Radio, where we talk about health information, health innovation, and all the technology in between. Until next time, wishing you all the best in health.
Fin Voices is brought to you by Fin Partners, a global marketing and communications agency working across industries and services. Whether inside our walls or on the front lines of health transformation, we stand together to create meaningful and measurable impact in the world around us. Learn more at finpartners.com and follow us on Twitter